One of the first things we're going to tackle tonight is the zombie meme.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There's certain memes that just keep popping up no matter how many times you shoot it down. Actually, shout out to CMB. He could actually coin that phrase, zombie memes.
Zombie memes.
And
I like it.
it was crazy. And to your point, right? We've all seen this meme or a variation thereof, right? All right. Now, hold up. You see this? SOC, did I put the link in the chat?
Links not there, but all everywhere.
Thank you.
It's everywhere.
Thank you. See that? I got you this time. Oh yeah. Now you can't run that with me now. You know what I mean? Yes, zombie memes. Absolutely. And of course, it's Jeremiah 10:2-4, right?
Yep.
And brother, if you could do the honors and quote this for us.
You got it.
In the authentic, authorized King James.
Gotcha. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. For the heathen are dismayed at them, for the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not.
Right. So, and I can see where people will make that connection. Right?
Oh,
especially for us New Yorkers, we get the Rockefeller Center tree, right? and they always do that cute little vignette about how they went to upstate New York and they got the biggest tree and they cut it and they brought it over, and then the big Christmas light in Rockefeller Center, right? So for New Yorkers, if we read this, we could read that into the text. So I get that. You know what I mean? I definitely get that, but it's not in the text. Right. Oh. As you heard me say, I had to read it in the text. Right. So for you, SOC, when you say Hebrew Israelite, this did it for you. This was the text.
Bro, this is the only evidence you need. It's just these verses right here. I mean, and then you even highlighted the part that proves that this is about Christmas, brother. Right. Cutteth a tree out of the forest. I mean, these are the customs of the people. According to my old belief system, this was it. You needed nothing else.
Well, funny enough, it is that line that I highlighted that actually says the opposite.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. Who'd have thunk it, right?
Yep.
So again, right? For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman with the axe. Let's now, because us in the UA, we're big on context. So we're gonna look at some of the linguistics and the cultural background of why would Jeremiah say it in this manner, right? There's something that I guess we miss in the English that if you look at it in the Hebrew and understand the context of what he was referring to, makes that much more, it gives more clarity. Even though if you just look at the English itself and you keep reading the whole passage, it clearly does show it's not a Christmas tree, right? It is an idol if you keep reading. But just on this alone, we're gonna get into it. You'll see what I'm saying. You'll see what I'm saying. Okay, now this is from a commentary about Jeremiah from C.L. Feinberg, and it says Jeremiah turned to the absurdity of idolatry. All idols are vanity, literally breath, that which is without substance. The worthlessness of worshiping them is proved by the worthlessness of the pagan gods. The prophet's description of idol making has its parallel in Babylonian inscriptions. So when he's saying this, for the customs of the people are vain, for one cut of a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe, this is in reference to something that Babylonians would say. Well, what exactly did they say? Well, I'm glad you asked. For this is from Jeremiah 10:3 in light of Akkadian Parsu and Zaku, referring to cult statues. It says here, the Akkadian Parsu is unanimously taken to mean, quote, cult audience. Nevertheless, in numerous texts, it designates physical objects, including divine statues and symbols. And in these cases, it should be rendered, quote, properly formed cult object, or, quote, properly fashioned divine statue slash symbol. This new understanding of the Akkadian term provides a parallel to that term, which I can't spell, in Jeremiah 10:3, which may be rendered now, quote, the properly formed cult statue of the Gentiles.
Hmm.
So when you look at it from the Semitic standpoint, when he's talking about the customs of the people, it's what he's saying here is it's the properly formed cult statues of the Gentiles. That's he's actually implying that in Jeremiah 10:3,
Hmm.
right? But let's go on though. Akkadian Zatiku has been recognized as semantically overlapping Hebrew hebel, meaning, quote, nothingness. Jeremiah's diatribe implies, quote, the cult statues of the nations, even when properly formed, are nothing. That's what he's saying in Jeremiah 10:3.
Hmm.
His taunt resembles in language the intent of the, quote, verse account of Nabonidus, in which Babylonian priests lambaste the heretic king of an illegitimately made cult statue. So he's using a popular phrase that Babylonians actually used to critique a god that a statue that Nabonidus made. They're actually making fun of another cult statue.
Hmm.
And Jeremiah's actually borrowing their slang, so to speak. The two.
All right. Peace, family. This is Darnell Gabriel from Revolutionary Sword. Okay, that was just a video of BK Apologist and his friend. What's his name? I don't want to disrespect him. Well, he's called Servant of Christ. Let's just say that. His title is Servant of Christ. Now, if you were paying attention, BK Apologist is actually talking about is the Christmas tree pagan. And he's actually going into some historical information of the background of Jeremiah 10:2, which is world famous for some Christians as well as Hebrew Israelites, if you will, quoting this verse and saying that everybody is putting up a pagan Christmas tree. Now, the reason why BK Apologist is doing this is because he disagrees with that. And the gentleman who is an ex-Hebrew Israelite also disagrees. And so he's going into some scholarly sources, commentary, explaining the context of Jeremiah 10:2. And I don't really have no issue with what he's presenting as far as the commentary is explaining, and he's even got a Akkadian tablet to back up his claim. What's the claim? The claim is that the famous Jeremiah 10:2 reference to the Christmas tree is actually an idol. Okay, it's actually an idol. It's not technically a tree. Okay. Now the thing is this. Let's just say he's right. Okay. And he's reading from sources and he's pulling up an Akkadian tablet. So let's just say he's right. Okay. But does that mean that within Jeremiah 10:2, there's no point of reference of any trees being used as a symbol of worship? Even if it is an idol god that was carved out of, let's just say, trees, does that not mean there's no reference within the book of Jeremiah to any form of tree worship that might be connected to that idol god? I would actually say sure it is. Sure it is. And I believe Jeremiah 10:2 actually reference a tree that is being used and being pointed to idol gods. Okay. So I'm just going to stop that right there with him. And I'm not going to disagree with his source as far as commentary wise. And I'm not going to disagree with the tablet that he is using to back up his claim. But I am going to say that I disagree that Jeremiah is not speaking about any directly. He's not speaking directly just or pointing to just idol gods that was carved out of wood or stone. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop share and I'm going to show you my understanding. And I'm going to take you to my Google Docs and point out to you why I believe that Jeremiah is most definitely referencing tree worship. Even if it's even if he can point out that it's also an idol god. I noticed that in his commentary that it said referencing to an idol god or a symbol. So when you're talking about symbols, we are talking about images. You know, we talking about like a symbol is more like a metaphor, you know, that's pointing to something that could be an object of worship, if you follow what I'm saying. Okay. So here you can see I'm in my Google Docs and I'm just going to get, you know, it's not real hard. At least I don't see it as being real hard to figure this thing out. And I don't know why, you know, it's such a, you know, pushback when people try to explain or inform people about certain cult practices that is you know, not from the biblical text, right? And there's no way that he can explain away that tree worship has been a part of cultic practices for millenniums. Do you hear me? For millenniums. So you have to ask yourself, okay, in our modern times, how far do, you know, the celebrations of festivals or holidays, or if you will, holy days, were trees involved? Now, you know, people can point out that in God's temple, he had trees like palm trees, okay, in the tabernacle. Yeah, but that's the creator of the heaven and earth. If he tell you to put palm trees in the tabernacle, then so be it. But just like I always heard growing up in church, right? That the devil will always produce a copycat practice or copycat form of worship to the creator. And that's what I believe this is it. This is what it is. It's just a copycat of worship to go against the creator. From the very beginning, man has always been doing something that seems like it's from God. It resembles God, but it's a copycat. And I'm just going to keep saying copycat, copycat, copycat. All right. But here we are. Now, here you can see origin of the modern Christmas tree. And of course, this is from Wikipedia. Okay. So just go to Wikipedia. Don't let nobody detour you talking about anybody could put it. No, they got scholarly sources that you can pull from and do some more in-depth research, if you will, in Wikipedia. But that's not the only source I got. So we just gonna go down this rabbit hole and I'm just gonna drag y'all with me in Jesus' name. All right. So in Wikipedia, Christmas tree, A Christmas tree is a decorated tree, usually an evergreen conifer, such as a spruce, pine, or fir, or an artificial tree of similar appearance. That might be, uh, I want to say conifer. I could be pronouncing that wrong, but please forgive me if I am. An artificial tree of similar appearance associated with the celebration of Christmas. So we all know that Christmas trees is associated with the celebration of the birth of Christ. And if you paid attention to my videos that I did, I believe, what, 2 weeks in a row, pertaining to the origin of Christmas, well, we all know that Christmas don't really have nothing to do with the birth of Christ, but it has everything to do with the death of Christ. Thus, Christmas is a compound word that actually means Christ's death. Christ meaning Messiah, Mass meaning whatever it is that the Catholic Church called it. I can't even remember it right now, but it has something to do with the body of Christ, right? And we know that Christ's body was put to death. So Christmas is not pertaining to the birth of Christ, but it's actually pertaining to the death of Christ. And if you will, the early church rejected the celebration of Christ's birthday, rejected it because they all felt like, well, at least most of them felt like that that was the celebration that comes from sinners, right? Which you can actually read in the I believe it's Genesis chapter 40. You can read King Herod celebrated his birthday, so on and so forth. In Josephus, Apion actually said that they did not celebrate uh, the birth of their children, so on and so forth. So we understand that Christmas in itself is totally paganistic. But what about this Christmas tree, which BK apologist and his friend, uh, servant of Christ, seem to disagree that it has nothing to do with paganism. Okay, but let's continue. All right, so we're gonna get a little bit of history, origin of the modern Christmas tree. Modern Christmas trees originated in Central Europe, particularly in Anos, Anos, and Anstonia, Germany, and Livonia, now Lativa, during the Renaissance in modern Europe. And this is one thing I always seem to run across, that a lot of the things that the European has done as far as like occultic practice go way, way back. And a lot of the stuff that they pull from came from Egypt. Oh yeah, I'm serious. It came from Egypt, because when they went on their conquest, they adopted a lot of other cultures' practices. Okay, but I don't want to get on a rant about that. But that's what I ran across. But here it talks about modern Christmas trees originated in Central Europe. All right, its 16th century origins are sometimes associated with Protestant Christians. Reformer Martin Luther, who is said to have first added lighted candles to an evergreen tree. Okay, so we know that Martin Luther is the one that went against the Catholic Church, right? And now you got a group of people that followed Martin Luther's reform, and that's where you get the Lutheran Church from. But it is said here in Wikipedia that he is the first to had lighted candles to an evergreen tree. The Christmas tree was first recorded to be used by German Lutherans in the 16th century, and with records of indicating that a Christmas tree was placed in the Cathedral of Strasbourg in 1539. Understand, under the leadership of the Protestant reformer Martin Bruce. Is that Bruce or Brucer? The Moravian Christians put lighted candles on those trees. The earliest known firmly dated representation of a Christmas tree is on the keystone sculpture of a private home in Trucken, Trucken. Please forgive me if I'm murking that. All right, but anyway, it's talking about this is in part of Germany to France with the date 1576. Okay, so that's just a little background of the modern day Christmas tree. But if you want to find out how far things go back, you got to really, really, really dig. And so the Bible reference, which BK apologists and servant of Christ says there's no reference to a Christmas tree in Jeremiah 10, but I literally disagree with that. Even if it has something to do with an idol statue, I can probably say with, I don't know, 90.999% confidence that there was also a tree or some type of tree altar next to that statue. I can pretty much believe that. Now, it goes on to say, everybody knows this. This is a famous scripture chapter and verses. Jeremiah 10:2 says, this is what the Lord says, do not act like the other nations. I'm reading from a different translation to make it easier to understand. Do not act like the other nations who try to read their future in the stars. Okay. Do not be afraid of their predictions, even though other nations are terrified by them. So you can clearly see, based off of what is being spoken here, in King James Version says, do not learn the way of the heathens, right? And it's referring to, trying to read their futures in the stars, which is something that people still practice today. All right. Also, he's telling the Israelites not to be afraid of their predictions, even though the other nations are terrified by them. Okay. But it goes on to say in verse 3, their ways are futile and foolish. They cut down a tree, right? They cut down a tree, and a craftsman carves an idol. So it's clear that it's talking about a carved idol, right? And verse 4 says, they decorated with gold and silver, and then fasten it securely with hammer and nails so it won't fall over. So the claim is that this is only referencing an idol and not quote unquote trees, right, that are being decorated, which is symbolic of what we're doing right now in modern times, connecting it to the Christmas tree. Okay. Now, this is why a lot of Christians now are starting to feel more comfortable to have Christmas trees in their home or quote unquote celebrate Christmas, because you got guys like BK apologists and now servant of Christ who is pushing the agenda that the Christmas tree has nothing to do with idol worship, right? Nevertheless, it's making people comfortable and saying, oh, okay, well, we can create the atmosphere for Jesus the Christ, and this is only symbolic of him. Okay, well, I disagree with that, because you're connecting practices that don't have nothing to do with the creator. They are mimicking the creator, but it don't have nothing to do with the creator. It was not sanctioned by the creator. That's why I believe you should not celebrate Christmas. That's why I believe you should not put up a decorated Christmas tree in your home. But we're going to go down this rabbit hole and get a little deeper with it. Now, I'm in Brown Driver Briggs. As you can see, this is the Strong's number 8560, Tomer, right? And in Brown Driver Briggs is talking about a palm tree, right? Palm tree construct, and it points to Judges 4 and 5, palm tree of Deborah, and this is where you can find Deborah under the palm tree before she actually starts to judge Israel, right? That's where they find her. But then, wait a minute, Tomer, palm tree. Jeremiah 10 and 5, like a post, a sacred, or like a, i.e., scarecrow, okay, like a post, all right. And some people are not into reading the Apocrypha, but this is Baruch, and you can go read in Baruch 6 and 70 pertaining to uh idol, okay. But what is the idol that is referring to? Well, if you go read in totality Jeremiah, we know that the Israelites is in captivity, right? And they are picking up a lot of customs from other nations. And look at this in Jeremiah 17 and 2, right? Just some chapters away from Jeremiah 10, right? Even their children go to worship at their pagan altars and Asherah poles beneath every green tree and on every high hill. Hmm. Hmm. Let's read that again. Even their children go to worship at their pagan altars and Asherah poles beneath every green tree and on every high hill. So we can clearly see that there were pagan altars and Asherah poles beneath every green tree. Now, I could even go along with that. Might have been an idol statue there, but that don't convince me that there was not a pagan altar and a Asherah pole beneath every green tree and on every high hill, according to Jeremiah 17:2. This is why I say you have to really, really, really go as deep as you can to make sure that you are following the train of thought of the letter of Jeremiah or the context of Jeremiah and the practice that the Israelites are practicing and God is warning them. Okay, so let's go further. Now, here I got something from academia education, and it's talking about Asherah as tree worship in ancient Israel. Asherah as tree worship in ancient Israel. And this is from I believe it's a young lady, Lolita B. Collins, right? Now, and you can go look this up, academia education, Lolita B. Collins, and it's talking about Asherah as tree worship in ancient Israel. And I'm gonna read the highlighted parts. Okay. The mother goddess Asherah is mentioned in some areas, such as 2 Kings 21:7. A living tree appears as Asherah in some scriptures, including Deuteronomy 16:21. The third occurrence of the word refers to a sacred post or tree trunk, a sacred post or tree trunk. And it is in the form that the term shows up most often. For example, Exodus 34:13 commands the Canaanite Asherahs to be cut down. Exodus 34:13. So we can clearly see that the Canaanites were practicing Asherahs, and God was commanding the Israelites to cut them down. Okay. Deuteronomy 16:21 instructs where Asherahs or any kind of tree should not be planted. So they actually was planting Asherah trees. Since we have already established the goddess of Asherah's connection to trees, it is clear through these verses that the Asherah of the Torah is a representation of the goddess Asherah. Further, the Tanakh shows in multiple verses that the Asherah were cultic in nature. Now, he mentioned in his video that it is pertaining to Jeremiah 10, referring to cultic people, right? Well, here you go. Lolita B. Collins is saying that the Asherah were cultic in nature. For example, in 1 Kings 14:15, the Israelites made their Asherahs, while in 2 Chronicles 33:3 and 19, Manasseh made and erected Asherahs. Well, that's pretty much sounds almost like what was happening in Jeremiah 10, right? Asherahs, only to have them destroyed by Josiah in 2 Chronicles 34. The term Asherah is used in Hebrew when referring to posts which were sacred due to their prominent placement in temples. Prominent places in temples. In the Israelite tradition, the Asherah could also be a living tree, as shown in Deuteronomy 16:21. The conclusion is that it was acceptable to represent the mother goddess Asherah as a tree in the ancient Middle East. This conclusion also shows that the dendromorphic goddess still held sway during the time of the Israelites. Okay, so here in Academia and Education, Lolita B. Collins points out that in Israel's time, there were Asherah poles being used as a form of worship. Okay. And she also points out it was pertaining to the mother goddess Asherah. Okay. So, and also in the Torah, it was commanded by God that the Israelites would cut down these sacred poles, right? These sacred tree trunks. God commanded the Israelites to cut them down because they represented the goddess of Asherah. Now let's go to another source, get some more information. Check this out. This is from the Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets. The Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secret. Go check it out. It says palm trees in the Babylonian myth of the primal garden. Primal garden. The palm tree was the tree of life. The palm tree was the tree of life. This actually makes a whole lot of sense to me because the tree of life in the garden, right, represents actually, and some of you all might not be familiar with this, but it actually refers to God's instructions or God's Torah, okay, or wisdom. In Proverbs chapter 8, I believe in verse 30 or through 31 or 33, something like that. But wisdom is referred to as a tree of life. Notice that in academia education, Ashra is referred to a goddess, right? Well, we know that wisdom is of a female nature. So God actually told Israel that he do not want them making any images pertaining to him because they did not see any form or shape. They only heard a voice, right? They only heard a voice. And he did not want them making any images towards it. That's exactly what the other nations was doing. He wanted to keep them separated from the other nations. That's why in Jeremiah 10 and 2 says, learn not the way of the heathens, right? Okay, now, but here in Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets, the palm tree in the Babylonian myth of Primal Garden, the palm tree was the tree of life. Okay, now you can go on and read more and more about this, but the tree of life also is pertaining to, let me read just a little bit of this here. Her male counterpart, okay, is Baal Peor or Phoenix. Her male, who is Baal Peor? Everybody knows what Baal is. That's an idol god. And you know, Baal actually has a wife. Now it goes on to say, or Phoenix, the god of Phoenicia, whose name meant land of palm. Now, wait a minute, watch this. As a phallic deity, Baal Peor was symbolized by a palm tree between two large stones. Two, oh boy, two large stones. Sexual orgies in the temple celebrated his union with the goddess in Phoenicia and in Israel until priests of Yahweh killed the celebrants in the midst of their rites. Numbers 25 and 8. Numbers 25 and 8. Still, the feminine connotations of the palm tree remain. The goddess was often embodied in mother palm, giving the food of 764 life in the form of coconuts and dates. Now, so this palm tree, which represents the mother goddess, right? The mother goddess, and she was supposed to be the wife of Baal Peor. And as you can clearly see, they're describing Baal Peor was symbolized by the palm tree between. Well, let me go back up. I didn't explain this part as a phallic. As a phallic. Now, if you don't know what a phallic is, go look it up. A phallic is a male part, which is the penis. Okay, so as a phallic deity, Baal Peor was symbolized by a palm tree between two large stones, a male phallic, which is a male penis, between two stones, obviously that got to be the testicles, right? And sexual orgies in the temple celebrated his union with the goddess in Phoenicia and in Israel until priest of Yahweh killed the celebrants in the midst of their rites. And you can go read it in Numbers 25 and 8. Now, isn't that interesting? Is it that interesting? The Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets. So This is actual history that you can go read up on, and everybody know that this is a part of the biblical text, right? But we're talking about tree worship. We're talking about trees that was used that pointed to an idol god. It was symbolic to an idol god, which actually in BK Apologist uh video, when he was uh reading from a scholar's work, it points to symbolism. It points to symbolism. So we can clearly see right here, based off of academia education writing and the Woman's Encyclopedia writing, is talking about tree worship that points to deity, which is an idol god. Okay. Now, it's an interesting read. You should go read this. You should go read this. Now, do I want to read that part? Okay, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Let me read this a little bit right here. Let me read this little bit right here. Okay, it says right here, the spirit of the palm tree was still the great mother in the tradition of early. Ooh, wait a minute. Hold up. Oh boy. Oh boy. Somebody about to, wait a minute. I'm finna let y'all see me highlight this part. Why didn't I have it highlighted already? Shame on me. Shame on me when you trying to give out real good information. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Boom. Okay, now let me read that again. The spirit of the palm tree was still the great mother in the tradition of early Christians. Did you hear that? The spirit of the palm tree was still the great mother in the tradition of early Christians who gave the title of the Holy Palm, Ta Marie, to the Virgin Mary. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Boy, y'all in trouble. Y'all in trouble. Yet, Egyptians continue to call a man's penis his palm tree. His palm tree. This is Graves WG 197 2 Hughes 55 3, the Book of the Dead. So you got early Christians still holding on to the tradition, obviously of pagan customs, of the spirit of the palm tree, which pointed to the great mother who gave the title of Holy Palm, Ta Marie, to the Virgin Mary. And the Egyptians continued to call a man's penis his palm tree. That's that's a drop the mic right there. I'm telling you, all this has something to do with tree worship. This is your Christmas. All right. Now, here's another source. This is Christmas trees in the Hebrew Bible. Christmas trees in the Hebrew Bible, ArmstrongInstitute.org. ArmstrongInstitute.org. Christmas trees in the Hebrew Bible. Customs that long date Christianity. Wait a minute, what did they say? Customs that long dated or date Christianity. Sound like that predated Christianity. Encyclopedia Britannica states Christmas customs are an evolution from time that long, I believe that means predated, antedate the Christian period. That means that it was before Christianity was around. A descent from seasonal, pagan, religious and national practices, seasonal, pagan, religious, and national practices, hinged about with legend and traditions. That's from Encyclopedia Britannica. And I'm reading from ArmstrongInstitute.org, Christmas trees in the Hebrew Bible. Go check it out. Here's another thing from Britannica. Okay. And it's talking about how did the tradition of Christmas trees pretty much come about? How did they start, right? Trees have been used in rituals and as decoration since ancient times. Why would they say something like that if it wasn't true? Are you trying to tell me that what you just read, BK Apologist, is just as or more scholarly than what Britannica just said? I wish you can give me an answer, but if you don't, I think you understood that what I brung out was more than enough evidence to prove that the Christmas tree is pagan. But anyway, let's continue. Thus, making the source of the modern Christmas tree open to debate. However, many believe that it originated in Germany. Well, that's what we read a little bit earlier up there in Wikipedia. It is claimed that in Germany, about 723, the English missionary Saint Boniface encountered pagans preparing a sacrifice at an oak tree dedicated to the god Thor or Donar. Boniface took an axe to the tree, and when not struck down by their god, he proclaimed the awed pagans that a nearby evergreen was their holy tree. All right, was their holy tree. Now the thing is this: a lot of people say you can't prove that. You can't prove that if that's a true story or not. Maybe you can't. Even Britannica says that it's an argument, it's a debate, it's open, right? But nevertheless, I think there's enough sufficient evidence that I can see, and that I would not, what I'm putting on the screen is proving that tree worship has been a part of ancient times, way before the existence of Christianity. But anyway, I wanted to point out something that I looked up. Okay. You see where it says oak tree dedicated to the god Thor or Donar? Well, you can go read in academic.com, which is a part of Wiki. The Donar oak, also Thor's oak, was a legendary oak tree sacred to Germanic tribe. It seemed to me that a lot of people is making that connection. If it's sacred, that means it's holy, right? And it's connected to Germanic tribe. I'm not going to stop right there, though. This is from Flavius Claudius. Boy, y'all getting whooped today. Flavius Claudius Julianus.com. The Tree of Thor. Flavius Claudius Julianus.com. The Tree of Thor. Watch this. Anglo-Saxon, Norse, Northern Europe. The Tree of Thor. Pagan. Reluctant to convert to Christianity. So you got pagans which was a part of the Anglo-Saxon Northern Europe, they was reluctant to convert to Christianity. You can go read this. Go read this. Flavius Claudius Julianus.com, the tree of Thor. Now watch this. The sacred groves. Wait a minute. Did we just read something in the Bible about Asherah and groves? The pagan Saxons believed in the Germanic gods like Odin, Thor, Freya, just like all the tribes north of the old Roman borders. These deities were well known even during Roman times. Well known during Roman times. The famous Roman historian Tacitus, for instance, links Thor with Hercules, while other Greeks and Romans connect him with Jupiter. Pagan beliefs were a lot closer and in tune with nature. A lot of these cultic people, they were nature worshipers. Nature worshiper. So it makes sense to me that they would have a idol god and then some type of altar and some type of tree that represents that idol god. That makes sense to me. You just have to connect all the dots. All right. Pagan beliefs were a lot closer and in tune with nature as opposed to Christian habit of constructing and praying in stone churches. They venerated the gods through nature itself with the creation, which is something God actually instructed that the children of Israel should not do. Is that not true? Okay. Creation of sacred groves and trees dedicated to these gods and trees. So Asherah poles will be connected to the idol gods, not just idol gods alone, but you will have sacred groves, altars, and trees that connect to the idol gods, where prayers and offerings could be made. Trees were special objects of veneration. Okay. Also, I want to read this little part. They believed, in fact, that an ash tree, Kali Yggdrasil, was the century of the world, and the gods held assemblies next to this giant tree. Boy, I'm telling you. Boy, I'm telling you. So now you got sacred groves being explained by, let's go back up, Flavius Claudius Julianus.com, the tree of Thor. And Tacitus is actually a Roman historian that actually talks about all these things. Let me finish this off. Whether that tale is true or not, evergreen trees, now this is picking up from, because I had broke off from Britannica, but I'm going back to Britannica right now, so try to keep up with me. All right, so we're back in Britannica. All right, I'm trying to give you as many sources as I can to help you to understand my train of thought and why I know that Christmas trees are pagan. Okay, this is Britannica. Whether that tale is true or not, evergreen, and it's, remember, it's talking about whether Boniface, the story of Boniface, is true or not in converting pagans to Christianity, which I kind of believe the story based off of what I'm reading right here when it's talking about pagans reluctant to convert to Christianity in Flavius Claudius Julianus.com, talking about the tree of Thor. I kind of believe the story, but it's open for debate. Nevertheless, it says whether the tale is true or not, evergreen trees became a part of Christian rites in Germany. It had to come from somewhere, right? Anyway, in the Middle Ages, paradise trees, well, that sounds very familiar to me. When you talking about paradise trees, tree of life, all that's all part of the Bible. And then you have pagan nations that had they own rights and tree of life and so on and so forth. That was contrary to what the God of Israel was telling the Israelites to practice. This all makes sense to me. Anyway, it says paradise trees began to appear there. Meant to represent the Garden of Eden, these evergreen trees were hung with apples and displayed in homes. With apples and displayed in homes. Now that's interesting because we was just reading about the palm tree, and between the palm trees was like two stones, right? Which obviously it represents the male genitalia, right? The male penis and his testicles. Now it goes on to say these evergreen trees were hung with apples and displayed in homes on December 24th, the religious feast day of Adam and Eve. Now, you see, that became a part of Christian rite. But did God ever tell them to do that? No, he didn't. Wait a minute, let me make sure I ain't going too fast. German settlers also introduced Christmas trees in the United States. So, see, you people are being taught something that came from pagan traditions, and it's from European people, German settlers, that brought the Christmas trees to the United States. Now, watch this. Now, this is really interesting. This is Britannica. Though the custom was not initially embraced, many Puritans opposed the holiday because it is pagan. Pagan. Pagan roots. And officials of the Massachusetts Bay Colony actually outlaw celebrating Christmas. How many of you all knew that? Their dislike of the holiday was such that they even closed their churches on December 25th. That's from Britannica. You can go read all that in Britannica. All right. Let me continue. Now, this is something that a lot of people might not be familiar with. I wasn't real familiar with this, but when BK Apologist brought it up, of course, I had to read about it and then talk about it. Okay, but anyway, this is from www. OsirisNet.net. OsirisNet.net. Okay, and it's talking about the great Jared. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this right. Please forgive me. Neterit Festival of Soker. The Great Net Jared Festival of Soker. Now, let's read this. The Festival of Divinization renews the union between Horus, cosmic manifestation of rebirth, and Sokar, Osiris. Now, if you don't know who Horus is, go look him up. But Horus is technically the offspring of Osiris. Okay, the offspring of Osiris, becoming a Scythonian entity. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But anyway, I had to look up what is a Scythonian entity. Okay, so this is what a Scythonian entity is. Now, let me make sure you understand. This is a festival that's celebrated in Egypt, right? And it's the Jared festival of Soker. It's a festival of divinization, renews the union between Horus, cosmic manifestation. So Horus is the cosmic manifestation of rebirth, and Soker, Osiris, becoming Synthonian entity. Now, what is a Synthonian entity? Here we go. Synthonian gods. Did you hear that? Synthonian god, literally gods of the earth. So Horus, Osiris, Synthonian gods, literally gods of the earth. Subdivision of Greek pantheon. In usage of Synthonius, get its meaning from a contrast implicit or explicit with Olympian or heavenly gods. Olympian or heavenly god. So Horus would be the earthly representation of Osiris, who is the heavenly. Are you following me? Horus will be the earthly representation of Osiris. Okay. Now, where are you going with all this? Now, just to make sure you clear, all right. The ritual which comes from this transformation rests on specific offerings of onions. To who? The Soker Osiris. That's what the onions are being offered to. Okay. Now, what do the onions got? What do onions got to do with all this divinity stuff? Okay, let's go a little further down. Now, there's a little picture right here, and you see it says first Christmas tree at Roy. This is in Egypt, and that's the wall. That's what's on the wall of Egypt, right? Now, this is in Oxford reference. Now what we just read is this is a part of the same dictionary. It says oxfordreference.com, oxfordreference.com, and it's still talking about Sithonian, literal meaning belonging to the earth, a term used to describe a god or goddess of the earth or the underworld, which is Horus and Osiris. Also extends to mean the divine, Horus or Osiris, divine creative force, and the source of fertility, Isis. That's in Egypt. She's an Egyptian goddess. And in the crops, fertility in the crops, animals, and humans. Crops, animals, and humans. The term is also used for underground deities connected with death. In ancient Greece, belief in the Olympian gods under the sky, god Zeus succeeded the old belief in Synthonian powers. Now, let's read a little bit about this Christmas tree in Egypt. This ceremony also takes place in the private Theban necropolis. During the night of Cognac 25th. I believe that would be like in October. The priest of the Ka or the deceased family make the libations and fumigations in the chapels of the tomb. During the night and until the dawn, the living create necklaces of onions and tie them around their neck, and also make assemblies of stems of onions in a bundle wreath with a shackle, which is offered to Soker and the deceased. So here, this is some type of religious way of showing some type of libations to the soaker, and we know that the soaker is Osiris, and it's onions in a bundle wreath with a shackle, which is offered to soaker and the deceased. They will allow obtaining the breath of life at the time of the ritual of opening of the mouth. Opening of the mouth. In the text are found expressions such as to necklaces of onions, the divine night, the divine morning, or is asked to follow soaker onions around the neck. Now, it has something to do with obtaining the breath of life. Obtaining the breath of life. Don't ask me a bunch of questions about how onions give you the breath of life. I don't know, but this is what I'm reading. Okay. Now, let me jump down here. It says at the same time, in Thebes, there occurred a fusion between Horus, cosmic manifestation of the solar rebirth, and Osiris, Soker, becoming the principal Sithonian of the riches of the land. In other words, they are the principal gods of the land. What land? Well, of course, Egypt. Okay, of course, Egypt. And this fusion produced the links with onions at this precise date of Cognac 25th, October 29th. Indeed, agricultural calendar defines the liturgary. Now, it seems to me the onion planted at the end of September, picked at the end of October, are heralding the coming of light and are going into be transplanted in the land to be chewed at the time of the festival of Ba. Now that's more enough information that I can give you right now. You have to go do a little bit more reading yourself, but basically it has something to do with the riches of the land, and we know that the riches of the land is pertaining to crops, fertility, life, right? All these is connected to the soker, or the giving of onions to the gods, so-called gods Horus and Osiris, right? And they are the principal Sithonians of the richness of the land of Egypt, that is. Okay, so, but remember, the tree has something to do with the Garden of Eden, which represents eternal life or life, right? And this is a part of that ritual of giving to the Soker, giving of onions to the Soker, which is Osiris, and to the dead. Okay, so that's a part of the ritual. Don't mean I understand every aspect of it, but that's a part of the ritual, and that's an old custom that was practiced in Egypt thousands of years ago. You can read this in let's see. Do I have the www.worldhistory.org. Festivals in ancient Egypt. www.worldhistory.org. Festivals in Egypt. Sokor Festival of Cognac. Sokor was an agricultural god in the early dynastic period in Egypt, 3150, 2613 BCE, whose characteristics were later taken on by Osiris. Just what I told you. In the Old Kingdom, the Sokor Festival was merged with the solemn Cognac Festival, Cognac, of Osiris, which observed his death. So it has something to do with Osiris' death, but the rebirth of his life through Horus. Okay. And all this is connected to this right here. So the tree represents death and rebirth, death and rebirth. And they use the evergreen because evergreen represents eternal life. I mean, you notice the evergreen tree never dies, right? Now look at this. This is from the Assyrian tree of life. The source is Samizdat, pagan Christmas celebration. Samizdat, pagan celebration of Christmas. You can go look that up. Now, I ain't got no more. I gave you a whole lot. And I'm finna stop this recording. I don't know if you got everything, but this is Dark Gabriel from Revolutionary Sword. BK apologist. You got to go back and recant everything that you put out. You probably not gonna do it. All right, but this is Darnell Gabriel from Revolutionary Sword. All right, and I'm going to end this session in 1 second. Okay, so I'm gonna end this recording right now, and I thank you for allowing me to share the information that I've learned over the years, and hopefully you'll take that and use it for your own library and knowledge base to understand the principles of what the Bible is saying. Okay, this is Darnell Gabriel from Revolutionary Sword, and I bid you shalom, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, here's some music.
Thanks, man. Trap theology, you already know. I remember being in rock bottom, man. How the Lord done turned my whole situation around. Everything jumping, you know what I'm saying? Let's get it. My iPhone jumping like LeBron. Tour dates jumping like MJ. T-shirt jumping like Vince Carter. Grinding for the king, out here making play. Jumping out the gym. We jumping out the gym. Jumping out the gym. We jumping out the gym. I feel like Dominique. Highway above the rim. Jumping out the gym. We jumping out the gym. Came a long way from them overdrafts. Had people fronting on me, I got over that. On the road, doing show, yeah, back to back. Cell phone jumping like I'm flipping packs. My old partner think I'm jugging, told me welcome back. I told him, yeah, I'm making moves, but I'm through with that. Y'all sure got my back. Yeah, that's the plug. Satan on the tag. Yeah, that's the scrub. Trunk full of t-shirt. Yeah, that's the work. In your city going up,